He was the self-proclaimed Scrappy Underdog of Survivor Season 47, and he came out in second place runner-up of Survivor Season 47. Mr. Sam joins me now. Sam, how are you feeling now that the season's done? Everything's out there.
I'm relieved. I don't know. A lot of emotions, but it's been a magical ride. And so to finally have the story come to a close is wild, but freeing and relieving in its own way.
Yeah, hey, I think that's a good kind of way to look at it. Now, I'm curious a little bit about your game because it was very fascinating to me, like I said, being this very scrappy underdog. So, with that, I'm curious what your expectations were going into the game and then kind of how you felt once you were in it and maybe even how you feel now about it.
I did not expect to have to play the style of game that I sort of played. I thought I would be somebody who maintained a lot more control throughout the entire game. And what I guess surprised me was the fact that everybody perceived that control very early on and, took it away from me. So I played a very good dominant pre-merge of the game, got to the merge and really had to pivot. I think any good survivor game is adaptable and dynamic in its own way. And so I thought I'd be good at challenges. I thought I would be all of these things that I ended up not being, and somehow was a lot more elusive socially and strategically than I think I gave myself credit for. So looking back on it, I could not be more proud of that sort of scrappy underdog mentality. It's very much how I felt every second of every day out there. And I'm glad that I feel like it came through to the people watching at home.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with you. Now, you talked about your social game, so I'm curious with that. Pre-merge, it seems like you were pretty close with both Sierra and Rachel, and then you guys were kind of working together at the beginning of merge before everything blew up. So, how would you say losing Sierra and then you and Rachel kind of going off on your own impacted your game?
So I think it was very freeing and like liberating for me to be able to not be tied to any alliances anymore. The idea that I was playing from the bottom stinks, right? I mean, you don't want to be at the bottom and constantly be having your name brought up or wrote down at tribal council and having to fend off this target 24/7. But I think escaping death so narrowly, the night that Sierra went home gave me this permission to just go play and just go have fun and do big stuff and be aggressive and not care, right? Like I don't care if I'm on the bottom. I'm gonna cause chaos anyway. I don't care if it doesn't look like I've got a ton of friends in the game right now. I'm gonna, pick some people up and make a big move anyway, and I'm gonna take who I want to take on reward. I'm gonna do it my own way. And I think you tiptoe around the game for a while, um, not wanting to make a big mistake and not wanting to like lose all the stuff that you've sort of built up. And Sierra going home was for me the thing that gave me permission to go and play and backstab and do all of the things that I needed to do to get myself to the end.
Yeah, I mean, I think playing the game your own way is the only way to play, right? I
Yeah.
think that's where we see the most successful Survivor players. Now, another bond that really stuck out to me this season that fans really seemed to take a liking to as well was you and Genevieve. It was kind of unexpected, but it came to be when you guys were both at the bottom. So I'm curious, what was it like kind of forging that bond with her and then also ultimately kind of being the reason she went out because you outed her for the fake idol?
I mean, just fun, 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 fun. I think Genevieve, I taught Genevieve how to feel a little bit, how to be emotional with people and open up with people out there. And Genevieve taught me how to not take myself too seriously and be willing to be self-deprecating and like laugh and giggle and shrug our shoulders and talk about how we're doomed, but also bounce ideas off one another. It was just genuinely a joy every day playing with her. Um, and the highlight of my survivor experience. And so it was definitely a relationship that meant a lot to me then, means a lot to me now. Um, and Genevieve doesn't get how great she is. She doesn't understand how dominant and awesome she is. I think she beats anybody in the game unanimously at a final tribal council. And so I knew I could never sit next to her. I just don't think she knew that I knew that. And um, I had to do what I had to do to try and, try to win. But I would have absolutely loved to go as deep into the game with Genevieve as possible while also giving myself a shot to win.
Yeah, no, that sounds like the best kind of relationship. Now, moving forward about, I don't know, a couple days or so in the game, this infamous fire making challenge that most people
Yeah.
are scared to kind of do. And I think you kind of were pretty hesitant as well. But we see this shift in you when you get to reread that letter from your dad and then ultimately end up beating Teeny in the fire making. And maybe because of the wind? I don't know. It was such an interesting fire making challenge to watch, but kind of walk me through how it feels to win and kind of just what that day was like for you because it was seemingly pretty tough.
Yeah, it was a crazy day because I didn't really practice fire. Obviously, I talked about that a little bit. For whatever reason in my head, I thought, all right, you put me in the moment, you give me a flint and steel and give me all day. I'll be able to figure it out. Like I'll be able to practice enough to figure it out. And so I sort of go in being hesitant, and you sort of see over the course of the day the panic start to set in as I'm not figuring it out. And the more that I go without being able to make fire, the more afraid I get of that night and the more afraid I get of looking stupid. And I had this little emotional spiral. And so I kind of came to terms with myself of tonight's going to be the night. Tonight's going to be the night that we go out, and that's okay. And I'm at peace with it. And I had accepted it until I read the letter from my dad. And I read the letter from my dad, and it was like, what are you doing day 25 if you are not fighting down to the very last second? Like, get up, go into the jungle, make a fire. I don't care, make a fire. And so I just kept working until I got one just to prove to myself that I could do it, and chose to keep faking it until I made it at the tribal council.
Yeah, and then you did it, so it all worked out. Now,
Yeah.
one of the most impressive things as a viewer about you the whole season was honestly your final tribal council presentation. I will say I was hoping for Rachel, no offense, but I genuinely thought you were going to win. Like they really had me convinced in the editing because I think you were so compelling. So, what was your plan going in? Because you presented very strongly, which is where a lot of people fall and crack in this game.
Yeah. Well, I really wanted to be aggressive. I had played the entire game being aggressive no matter what and really trying to take control of my own game. And I really wanted to take control and command of the space that is Final Tribal Council, and very clearly demonstrate the ways in which Rachel and I played different games, and try and lay them both out for the jury as deliberately, and frame them as positively for myself as possible to paint this picture. I wasn't going to pull any punches. I was going to keep coming after Rachel like the pesky little brother that I was to her out there, and just go all out for it. But I knew that Rachel had played this game that was very loud, that had immunity necklaces and an idol play and things that the jury could see and undoubtedly talked about at Ponderosa, and had been stewing on for a while. So in order to really shift that tide and shift that narrative, I felt like it was important for me to be as aggressive as possible about painting this picture the way that I wanted it painted.
Okay, that's really interesting. And like I said, it was very compelling and it worked out for you in a way because you did get one vote. You are not a zero vote finalist. So
Correct.
that one vote was from Kyle. So I'm curious, what did his vote mean to you? And also, did you expect to maybe get any other votes from the jury?
Yeah, I mean, it meant everything, right? Like, weirdly, we are all remembered by how many votes we get at the end of the game. Like, when you get to day 26, that is ultimately what defines you. And so, uh, Kyle was somebody I had a great relationship with in the game. We weren't super strategically aligned all that often, but I think we just had a lot of good personal conversations. And when you make friends and you feel like people mean something to you or you mean something to them, it's nice to have that backed up by action in like the form of a vote at the end of the game. I did expect to get more. To be honest, I thought it was going to be very, very close at the end. The results surprised me. I thought I would have at least three. I thought Sierra was for sure going to vote for me. I thought Gabe would vote for me. And then there was a couple more that I thought would maybe be on the fence that I could swing. But I was expecting it to be a lot tighter than it ended up being.
Okay, that's interesting. Now, anything else that you want the viewers to know about your game that maybe wasn't showed or portrayed in the way that you hoped in the editing?
Yeah, I would love to talk a little bit about Operation Italy and just the intention behind the move for me. It was a very deliberate and calculated decision who I brought on the reward, why I brought them on the reward. Um, the whole idea of doing a 3-2-2 vote with a split and a fake idol was something that Genevieve and I had discussed the day before that reward actually happened. And so we had kind of debated back and forth who would be the best person to be our third for this heist that we need to pull off. Would it be Teeny or would it be Andy? And Genevieve really felt like Teeny was the best choice. I really had felt like Andy was the best choice. But all of Operation Italy, I felt like was something that I was very proud of strategically, and also positioned me in the best case scenario where two other people are going out of the game in front of me. Two other people are very loud about this thing, and it guarantees me a spot in 4 with all of the information in the game. So, um, very, very proud of it. Something that I did talk about at Final Tribal that didn't make the final cut of Final Tribal Council, but definitely a stamp on my game that I'm proud of.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Sam, I loved watching Operation Italy. I think that was one of the best moves of the whole season. Just real quick, yes or no, would you play again?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Well, Sam, it's such a pleasure speaking with you. Congrats on such a successful run. Hopefully, we'll see you again in the future on Survivor.